Okay guys, so I'm finally back out here with the brand new 2020 DAIWA Tatula SV 103. And I've actually recorded this before, but I didn't like the way that footage turned out, so I decided to do it again a little bit more planned this time. And this is how I'm going to do it. Now, the first part of this video, we are going to be addressing the people who don't have a Tatula SV and you're interested in one and you're wondering what all the hype is about. And then in the second portion, we're going to be putting the new Tatula up against the old Tatula for all the guys who have the old Tatula SV to see if there's any kind of difference. Particularly, is it worth upgrading to the new model? All right, so let's begin. Okay, so just to clarify, I have the JDM model of the 2020 Tatula SV, and I think the only difference is the knob end caps and then, of course, the nut and nut retainer versus the American model. I personally think the JDM model looks much better, but for all you guys who are interested in this reel, but you're wondering what the hype is about the Tatula SV, let's go over some of the things that the Tatula SV is supposed to be able to do. And I have them all listed on my phone here. Now, of course, SV means stress-free versatile, and basically that means that DAIWA engineered any reel with an SV spool to be able to cast heavy weights all the way down to light weights with little or no backlash. Now, the first thing that we're going to test is the SV able to cast thumb free like a lot of people say. Now, once again, the spool tension is set from the factory. I'm not touching it. There's actually a lot of side-to-side wobble there, but I assume DAIWA knows what they're doing. I'm going to tie on a pretty heavy lure and back the brakes down as low as I can get them and see if we can cast completely thumb free. Okay, so I've actually recorded a video where I show people how to cast completely thumb free, and when I say thumb free, I mean during the middle of the cast and even at the end of the cast when the spool hits the water. You don't have to use your thumb at all, and that was by tightening the spool tension to the point where the lure falls to the ground and there's just little or no overrun. But with these SV reels, especially the ones with the zero adjuster, they are pretty loose. The spool tension is set really loose. The lure falls really fast. So this is going to be a good test. Okay, so right now I have the brake set pretty high. I believe it's on 15. Once again, this dial is not colored like the old model, so it's kind of hard to see the numbers, but it's on 15. And we're going to just start backing these brakes down. All right, so thumb free right there. No overrun during the middle of the cast. Didn't have to stop the spool with my thumb at the end of the cast when the lure hits the water. All right, let's start backing them down. I'm going to go down 2 clicks to, I guess, 13. And I have a pretty heavy JACKALL mudsucker topwater bait tied on. It's about a little over 1/2 ounce. There you go, thumb free. Okay, let's go down 2 more. So that means we're on 11. Had a couple of little loops there, but nothing that's unmanageable. The distance is only okay. All right, let's go down to, I guess, 9. Oh, shit. And I just snapped the lure off, and it went about 50 yards. And this happened right here. Okay, guys, so another $15 lure lost, but that just comes with the territory. Now I have another lure Not nearly as expensive and not nearly as heavy. I think this is only like 3/8 of an ounce. But the show must go on. All right, so not gonna cast quite as hard now. All right, there you go, thumb free. Break on 9. Distance was probably like 35 yards. Let's go down to 7. All right, had a little bit of fluffing there. Okay, so there was some overrun when the lure hit the water. Not super bad, but there was a little. So I'm gonna say the limit on at least this particular lure is probably gonna be 8. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna turn the brakes to 8 now. Should cure that overrun and help with the backlash at the end of the cast. All right, well, the overrun was cured, but the backlash still there. So I'm gonna say that going completely thumb free requires a lot of braking on these SV spools. So if you're trying to bomb out for maximum distance, completely thumb free is not an option, but when the lure does hit the water, the backlash is very, very small. Let's go to 9 again. So yeah, for the most part, I think the thumb free part is pretty much true. And that's impressive considering that the spool tension on this particular model I have is so loose. Okay, let's go up one click to 10. There you go, thumb free. So 10 is the setting for this particular lure to go thumb free. So for any guys who are new to bait casting, that's definitely a big plus because you're not used to stopping the spool with your thumb. All right, let's talk about the second thing that these SV reels are known for, and that is being able to cast a heavy lure and then turn around and tie on a light lure without having to change any of the brake settings. All right, guys, to test this theory out, I have the 3/8 ounce top water still tied on. So I'm gonna make a few casts with this, with the brakes set on its lowest setting, which I believe is either 7 or 8. And then I'm gonna turn around and tie on this little 5-gram jerkbait. So you're looking at a lure that weighs about half as much as the top water. And we're gonna see if we can just tie this on and cast it without any kind of brake adjustments and see if there will be no problems. So the brake setting is on 8. And on this setting, there's no overrun in the middle of the cast. Okay, one more cast with the heavy lure. All right, time to tie on the lightweight lure. Okay, so this is a Duo Realis, I think a Rosante 63, weighs about 3/16 of an ounce or 5 grams, so about half the weight of that top water. Brake is still on 8. Let's see what happens. Oh shit. Well, the lure flew off. There was no overrun, but the lure was so light that I didn't compensate, and it went off to the left, and now it's stuck in a tree, and potentially another $15 lure. It's gonna get stuck. Let's see if I can get this out of there. Oh shit. Yes. Thank you, God. This was gonna be an expensive video if I lost this lure. All right, but hopefully you guys saw there was no overrun. Let's make a few more casts. Perfect. Now this rod is not really comfortable throwing this lighter lure, but there we go. It looks like that part of the equation is true. You can actually go from a heavier lure all the way to a lighter lure without having to make any kind of brake changes. One more cast with this lighter lure. Okay, so the last thing we're going to try out is its light lure capabilities. And this is a lure that weighs 3.2 grams on the scale. With the snap swivel, you're probably looking at 3.5 grams, so right at 1/8 of an ounce. Now this rod, it's a Megabass RYOGA 6'8" medium, is only rated down to 1/4 of an ounce. So this is going to be pretty much my skill and the reel. Let's see what this Tatula can do. And I'm going to turn the brakes up, let's say 4 clicks. See what this thing can do with a upper end bait finesse lure. So the brake is on. Looks like it's on 12. All right, so went out there with no drama. Probably went out there less than 30 feet though. So let's turn these brakes down. We're on 10 now. Still controlled. Distance didn't really go up. Let's go down to 8, which was where we were at with those other lures. Okay, there we go. Distance shot up. That probably went out there close to 50 foot. Now I'm feeling a little ticking on the retrieve here. I'm not sure if that's the line. All right, let's go down to 7. I didn't really cast it that hard, but spool still controlled. Let's see if we can go down to 6. All right, had a little bit of overrun there, nothing too bad. So I think 7 is going to be the limit for this lure. Now I'm going to start putting some effort into these casts, see how far this lure can go. Damn, that's very impressive. That thing went out there probably at least close to 70 foot, if not more. If you put this reel on a bait finesse rod, then you probably have a really great bait finesse reel, because this is 10-pound line and the spool is full. So if you put on some, let's say 6-pound line, fill the spool with only about 100 foot of line, then that's going to be impressive. I might actually test that out. All right, let's do 2 more casts just to show you guys. All right, so it doesn't really like a big forceful cast on the limit. So I'm going to turn the brakes at 1 click. There you go. So if you like to whip your lures out there like me, you probably need to use a little bit more brake. So yeah, there we go. Light lure test for the Tatula is a pass. So now we're gonna try to see if there's any kind of noticeable difference between this new SV versus the old SV. And this is for all you guys that have the old SV and you're wondering, is it any better? Is it worth upgrading or selling your older one to get the newer one, etc., etc. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just cast around the old SV for a minute, and then I'm going to actually put my GoPro on my hat. I brought my hat cam or hat mount cam on, and I'm going to try to throw a heavier lure and see which one of these casts the farthest. See if there's any kind of distance difference between the two, because if you saw the tabletop review, there was a significant loss of weight in the spool on the newer model. All right, let's go. Okay guys, so I've set up the 2017 Tatula, and the lowest brake setting I could go was 7. And I set the spool tension up to have just a little bit of side-to-side play, just like the new 2020 model. So that's even. And we're going to be throwing this little 3/8 ounce topwater lure, and you guys are going to probably have to judge which reel you think casts the farthest, but I'm going to use my hat cam for this particular test. Let's see what happens. Okay, so up next is the Tatula SV 2020 model. Brakes are on 7. Okay guys, so the last test we're going to do between the new Tatula and the old is going to be a little pitching comparison. And this is probably where the new model should hold the edge over the old model, because we're going to be pitching a relatively light lure, this Ned rig. Now it's one of the bigger Ned heads, but it's still pretty light, and we're going to see if there's any kind of difference in ease of pitching and pitching distance. Now I've preset both reels, and the lowest I could go on the external dial was 4 on each. And let me show you guys what these things can do. Okay, so first is the 2020 model, and hopefully you guys can see, but there's a sign out there in the water we're going to try to use as a reference point. Here we go. Okay, next up is the old 2017 model. Let's see what's up. Okay, so there's one more test that I forgot about before I go home and we discuss these reels, and that is the Tatula SV is supposed to be able to pitch and then turn around and fire a long cast without changing the brake settings. Now I have the brake setting once again, I believe it's on 4. Yep, it's on 4. I was pitching around the Ned rig. So we're going to make a couple of pitches with the Ned rig, and then we're going to try to fire a long cast and see if that's true. All right, pitch is done. Just fire off the long cast. Okay, well, apparently that's not true, at least on this brake setting. Let's try it out with a higher brake setting. Okay, so let's give it another shot. I have the brakes turned up to 8 this time. Now pitching has gotten more controlled, but I definitely lost distance, probably by a good almost 5 to 10 foot of pitching distance. Probably at least close to 10 foot lost with the brakes on 8. All right, let's fire out a cast, see if these brakes can handle it. All right, Will, with the brakes on 8, you can definitely do that. But you will lose pitching distance. All right, so let's go home and talk about what I discovered. There we go. Little bass on the Ned rig with high vis yellow line. First fish on the 2020 Tatula. Okay guys, so better late than never. We finally get to see what the 2020 Tatula SV103 can do, and let's talk about it. So basically I put it through, a series of little tests to test out, these things that Tatula SVs are supposed to be able to do. And let's start with the first one, and that is casting thumb free. Now, for the most part, I'm gonna say that's true, but you really can't do it with the lowest brake setting for whatever particular lure you're casting. Or like a medium low brake setting, and you should be able to cast thumb free throughout the entire cast and not even have to stop the spool with your thumb at the end of the cast. Now the second thing is that they say that you can cast a heavy lure and then turn around and tie on a much lighter lure without having to adjust the brakes, and it should handle it with no problem. And as you can see, that is true. I was casting a lure that weighed, I believe, in between 3/8 of an ounce and 1/2 ounce. And then I turned around and tied on that little 3/16 ounce little jerkbait. Didn't touch the brakes, casted it out, it handled it fine, no blow ups or anything. So that's true. So the next test is to see if the Tatula is able to pitch a lure and then turn around and then fire off a long cast without having to adjust the brakes. And on that test, that was a fail. But I was able to do that by turning the brakes up, but as you can see, the pitching distance was severely cut short. As you can also see that the Tatula SV has a huge casting range. I was able to successfully and very easily cast down to that sub 1/8 ounce little minnow on a rod that isn't even rated for a lure that low, as well as 10-pound line. So just imagine what this thing could do on a BFS rod with much lighter line. So casting range on this Tatula is pretty massive. So for all you guys who have never owned a Tatula SV and you're kind of eyeballing this reel and you're kind of wondering what the hype is about, that's pretty much the gist of it. If your priority is spool control and versatility, then this reel will do all of that with no problem and do it very well. But if your priority is casting distance, especially at its price point, $200, there are better options out there. But everything else it does extremely very well. Okay, so now it's time to address the new model versus the old model, and has the new model improved in any way? Has it gone backwards in any way? And of course, this is for all you guys who have the old model and you're kind of eyeballing the new one and you're trying to figure out if you should get it or not, if you should sell off your old ones, etc., etc. All right, so let's talk about casting and pitching performance first. Now, the first time I shot this video, I had these two reels on two different brands of rods, but they were the same length, same power, same action. And the old model casted the JACKALL Mudsucker 110 a little bit farther, more consistently. But the new model seemed like it pitched a little bit farther. But now, when we put them on the same rod, I had two of the same model rods that I purchased just for tests like this. It looks like the new model seemed to cast that lighter top water a little farther. I mean, I only did what, 2 casts before the lure broke off, but visually it looked farther and it was easier, but the pitching felt the same. So in my opinion, the old model may bomb the heavier lures a little bit farther, a little bit more consistent, and the newer model may cast lighter lures a little bit farther and easier because of the much lighter spool. And I feel that way because of the way this thing handled that little 1/8 ounce minnow, the little Rapala ultralight minnow. So yeah, that's my assessment of the two when it comes to casting and pitching. Pitching, they seem pretty even when they're on the same rod. But when it comes to everything else, that's when the new model, in my opinion, is better. Now, the new frame seems like it's made with much tighter tolerances, as this reel is a lot quieter in casting. And the retrieve is a lot less, how do I say it, a lot less clackety. So with the old Tatulas, especially the first gen, let's say you're trying to burn back a plastic so you can cast or pitch it out again. I'm sure you can hear that. It is very, very clackety. The new model, while it is clackety, it seems like it's a little less clackety. And also, the new model, as you can see, is a little bit smaller. Hopefully you can tell by the camera angle here. And it palms better in my opinion. And I can feel the brake teeth a little bit less on this new model than on the old model. And of course it is lighter. But one thing I can say about this new model, it's lost a little bit of that glassy smoothness that Tatulas are known for, and the smoothness is a little bit more buttery. So I went on DAIWA USA's website, and they don't list air rotation as a feature on this new Tatula. And I don't think they list it as a feature on any of the other newer Tatulas either, so I'm not sure if they left that out or if they decided not to advertise it. But basically the air rotation was a bearing on the main shaft, if I'm not mistaken, that gave the old Tatulas a very glassy smoothness, and this reel loses a little bit of that and gains a little bit more buttery smoothness, in my opinion. But I'm pretty sure that bearing is still there. I'd have to look at the schematics. So there we go, guys. In my opinion, the new model is definitely a noticeable improvement in refinement and precision and smoothness over the old one, with a little bit of casting advantage for lighter lures. But is it worth selling off all your old Tatula SVs and getting all new ones? Of course, that's up to you and your budget. But in my opinion, it is a worthy replacement over the old one. Now, what's next for this reel? I do have a couple of more tests I'm going to put it through, and then it's going to sit quietly in storage and wait for whatever Shimano has cooking for the CURADO 70 replacement. and I hope they release that at ICAST. But until then, there's the on the water impressions of the new 2020 Tatula SV 103. All right, guys, thanks a lot.